Apparently, finding your husband's second life on a Thursday night isn't what they mean by date night surprise. So there I was, Marnie Peterson, 38 years old, standing in the foyer of the Oak and Vine, a place Preston and I used to call our spot, watching my husband Preston, 40, clink glasses with my best friend Echo Miller, 37. They looked cozy. Too cozy for a work dinner or a yoga retreat planning session. My stomach dropped, but my brain was already writing the scathing Yelp review this entire situation deserved. He thought he was being slick, whispering sweet nothings across a linen tablecloth to the woman who'd shared my deepest secrets. Little did he know, I wasn't there to make a scene. Oh no, I was there to deliver a performance, a grand finale, a mic drop so spectacular it would make their expensive Pinot Noir taste like cheap vinegar. And I had a secret, a little bombshell that was about to make their illicit appetizer look like a mere breadstick. You see, I wasn't just the wife. I was the main event. The question wasn't if I'd confront them, but how. And the how involved a meticulously planned reveal that would not only expose their betrayal, but also utterly dismantle Preston's entire carefully constructed reality. Because while they were busy playing house, I was busy selling our house. And that, my friends, was just the beginning. Let's rewind a bit, shall we? Because every good train wreck has a prologue. For me, it started about 3 weeks ago, on August 1st. A perfectly unremarkable Thursday. Preston, my husband of 15 blissful, or so I thought, years, started acting different. More secretive with his phone, less engaged during our evening debriefs about work, and suddenly, his late nights at the office became as frequent as a Starbucks drive-through line on a Monday morning. I'm a marketing manager, a professional at reading between the lines and spotting patterns. And Preston's new pattern was screaming red flag, louder than a siren in a quiet Alpharetta neighborhood. Preston Hayes, my software engineer husband, was always a creature of habit. His routine was as predictable as a Georgia summer day. Hot, humid, and ending with him falling asleep on the couch watching ESPN. But lately, the humidity was gone, replaced by a chill that had nothing to do with our perfectly calibrated AC. His phone, once left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now glued to his hip, face down. He started taking calls in the garage, muttering about sensitive client data. Sensitive client data? My foot. The only sensitive data Preston usually handled was whether to order pizza or Thai on Friday nights. Then came August 10th, a Sunday. Preston was supposedly working on a big project at his home office, which usually meant scrolling through Reddit. I was doing laundry, minding my own business, when his phone buzzed on the counter. He'd forgotten it. My internal alarm bells, which had been gently chiming, suddenly went full-on air raid siren. I told myself it was wrong to look, a violation of trust. But then I remembered the late nights, the garage calls, the sudden disinterest in my day. Trust felt like a one-way street paved with my naive optimism. One quick glance. That's all it took. A text from Echo Miller, my best friend, my ride or die, the woman I'd shared everything with for the past 7 years, from bad hair days to dreams of opening a boutique winery. The text read, "Can't wait for our work dinner next week. Don't forget my favorite table at the Oak and Vine." The winky face emoji. Oh, that damn winky face. It hit me like a rogue golf ball from the country club next door. Work dinner? Echo was a yoga instructor and a wellness coach. Her work dinners usually involved kale smoothies and essential oils, not high-end restaurants known for their aged steaks and even older scotch. My first reaction wasn't tears. It was a cold, clinical assessment. Like I was reviewing a competitor's disastrous marketing campaign. The pieces clicked into place with sickening precision. The client dinners that ran suspiciously late. The sudden interest in his appearance. The way he'd subtly deflect when I mentioned Echo. He was sharing secrets over cocktails, all right? Just not with clients. And certainly not with me. The next few days were a blur of internal monologue and external composure. I became a master of the poker face, a silent assassin in my own home. I smiled. I nodded. I even asked Preston about his big project. Each lie he told was a tiny dagger, but I just kept collecting them, knowing I'd eventually forge them into a weapon. I needed more. I needed proof that would stand up in the court of public opinion, or at least in my own personal tribunal. On August 15th, I found it. Preston, in his infinite wisdom, had left his work laptop open on our home office desk. His calendar was up, and there it was, bold as brass. Client dinner, the Oak and Vine, 7 p.m. The date? Thursday, August 21st. The same date Echo had hinted at with her nefarious winky face. My heart hammered, but my resolve solidified. This wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was a confirmed reservation for 2 traders. I did a quick mental check. The Oak and Vine. Swanky. Dim lighting. Perfect for clandestine rendezvous. And just far enough from our gated community in Alpharetta that they'd feel safe from prying eyes. They underestimated me, though. They thought I was the kind of wife who'd crumble, who'd cry into a pint of Ben & Jerry's. They thought wrong. I was Marnie Peterson, and I was about to give them a masterclass in strategic retaliation. The next few days, from August 16th to the 20th, were a whirlwind of quiet, calculated action. While Preston was busy perfecting his I'm a busy, important man act, I was busy perfecting my I'm about to blow up your world act. I confirmed their reservation with a discreet call to the Oak and Vine, pretending to be Preston's assistant. Yes, Mr. Hayes' 7 p.m. table for 2 on Thursday. Just confirming. The hostess, bless her oblivious heart, confirmed it cheerfully. I also had another project brewing, one Preston had always dismissed as my little hobby. For 2 years, I'd been secretly developing an app called Insight Flow, a niche social media analytics tool designed for small businesses. Preston, with his big tech ego, always saw it as a cute diversion, something to keep me busy while he worked on important things. He'd say, "That's sweet, honey, but are you really going to make any real money from that?" "Oh, Preston, you just wait." On August 20th, the day before their little romantic dinner, I signed the final papers. A major tech conglomerate had acquired Insight Flow for a multi-million-dollar sum. The ink was barely dry and the wire transfer was already pending. I was officially, spectacularly, independently wealthy. And Preston had no idea. He was too busy planning his clandestine dinner to notice his wife was quietly building an empire. But that wasn't the only secret I was holding. Our beautiful, sprawling house in the gated community, the one Preston always referred to as our investment, the one he assumed was a joint asset, it was bought entirely with my inheritance from my grandmother, and the deed was, and always had been, solely in my name. He'd been too busy with his important job to ever properly look at the paperwork. And guess what? I'd already listed it for sale with a discreet realtor, and an offer had been accepted. Closing in 30 days. He was about to be homeless, jobless, from my house, and utterly blindsided. As I drove towards the Oak and Vine that Thursday evening, August 21st, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and a morbid curiosity. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash you knew you could have prevented but chose not to, because the spectacle was just too good. My heart wasn't broken, it was hardened. My mind wasn't clouded by tears, it was sharpened by a desire for poetic justice. I wasn't a victim. I was the architect of my own, gloriously messy future. And Preston and Echo were about to get a front-row seat to the show. The only question was, would they have enough popcorn? Probably not. They were about to lose their appetites entirely. The valet at the Oak and Vine, a fresh-faced college kid who probably thought he was parking a Ferrari when he took my perfectly sensible SUV, greeted me with a polite smile. "Welcome to the Oak and Vine, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" I gave him my most serene, "I'm just a woman enjoying a Thursday evening" smile. "No, but I'm meeting someone. Preston Hayes, table for 2. His eyes flickered with recognition. "Ah, yes, they've just been seated." They. The word hung in the air, a tiny, almost imperceptible sting. But I just nodded, my internal monologue already crafting the opening lines of my stand-up routine. Walking into that restaurant felt like stepping onto a stage. The air was thick with the clinking of silverware, hushed conversations, and the faint scent of truffle oil. My eyes scanned the dimly lit room, past the power lunching executives and the couples celebrating anniversaries, until I spotted them. Table by the window, just as Echo had requested in that text. Preston, in his expensive suit, leaning in, a look of faux intimacy on his face. Echo, in a dress I'd actually helped her pick out last month at Nordstrom, giggling like a schoolgirl. It was a scene straight out of a bad rom-com. Only I was the unsuspecting protagonist who was about to turn it into a horror flick. I took a deep breath, adjusted the strap of my designer bag, a gift from Preston, ironically, and began my slow, deliberate walk towards their table. Every step was a beat in my personal drum solo of impending doom. I could feel the energy shift, the subtle hum of my own power. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about control. About reclaiming my narrative from two people who thought they could rewrite it without my permission. As I got closer, I could hear snippets of their conversation. Preston, ever the charmer, was recounting some anecdote about his demanding boss, a story I'd heard a dozen times, usually followed by a request for a back rub. Echo, her eyes wide and adoring, was hanging on his every word, occasionally interjecting with a breathy, "Oh, Preston, you're so brilliant." My teeth practically ached from clenching my jaw. Brilliant? The man couldn't figure out how to work the smart thermostat without my help, but sure, Echo, he's basically Einstein. I paused just a few feet from their table, letting the scene play out for a moment longer. They were so engrossed, so oblivious. It was almost comical, like watching two toddlers play hide and seek, convinced no one could see them because they had their eyes closed. I cleared my throat, a delicate, almost imperceptible sound. Nothing. They were in their own little bubble of betrayal. "Well, isn't this cozy?" I said, my voice cutting through the restaurant's ambient noise like a perfectly sharpened steak knife. Their heads snapped up simultaneously, like synchronized swimmers suddenly realizing they'd hit a wall. Preston's face, usually a canvas of carefully maintained composure, went from pale to ghostly white in a nanosecond. Echo, on the other hand, looked like she'd just seen a ghost, or perhaps like she'd just been caught with her hand in the cookie jar. A very expensive, very married cookie jar. "Marnie?" Preston stammered, his voice cracking like a teenager's. "What? What are you doing here?" I offered him a sweet, saccharine smile. "Oh, just out for a casual Thursday evening. Alpharetta can be so dull, can't it? Thought I'd spice things up a bit. Imagine my surprise, finding you two lovebirds here. What a small world, right?" My eyes flickered to Echo, whose carefully applied makeup suddenly seemed to be melting under the heat of my gaze. "And Echo, my dearest friend, you look surprised. Did you forget to mention your work dinner to me?" Echo opened and closed her mouth a few times, like a fish out of water. Her face was a kaleidoscope of guilt, fear, and a healthy dose of embarrassment. "Marnie, I can explain." "Oh, I'm sure you can," I purred, pulling out a chair from a nearby empty table and sliding it confidently to their table. "But why don't I save you the trouble? I think I've got the Cliff's Notes version down. Preston and Echo, sharing secrets over cocktails, and probably a few other things too. Did I get that right?" Preston finally found his voice, a pathetic attempt at indignation. "Marnie, this isn't what it looks like. We were just discussing a business opportunity." I raised an eyebrow, a silent challenge. "A business opportunity? Really?" Because last I checked, Echo's business mostly involved convincing suburban moms that kale smoothies could solve all their problems. And yours, darling, involved debugging code, not debugging our marriage. Unless, of course, this opportunity involves a new app for married men seeking yoga instructors. A few heads at nearby tables started to turn. The hushed conversations grew even quieter. The Oak and Vine, usually a bastion of discreet dining, was now becoming a stage for my personal drama, and I was loving every second of it. This was my moment, my mic drop opportunity, and I wasn't about to waste it. "Marnie, please," Echo whispered, her voice barely audible. "Let's not make a scene." "A scene?" I chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Honey, you two already made the scene. I'm just here to provide the commentary. And trust me, my commentary is far more entertaining than whatever drivel you two were cooking up." I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. though loud enough for the tables around us to catch. Tell me, Echo, did you at least get a discount on that dress from Nordstrom? Because it seems like you're getting a pretty good deal on my husband. Preston's face was now a shade of puce, a truly magnificent color. He looked around frantically, desperate to escape the public scrutiny. Marnie, we can talk about this at home. Oh, we certainly will, Preston, I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. But first, I think we need to address the elephant in this very expensive, very awkward room. Or should I say the two elephants? 1, my husband, and 2, my supposed best friend. You know, the one who swore she'd never betray me, the one who helped me pick out my wedding dress, the one who cried with me when my grandmother passed away. Funny how loyalties shift when a shiny new toy comes along, isn't it? I picked up a breadstick from their basket, twirled it thoughtfully. So what's the plan here? Were you going to break the news to me over a girls' brunch next weekend, Echo? Or were you just going to let me stumble upon your little love nest like this, like some kind of sad suburban scavenger hunt? Echo finally found her voice, a pathetic whimper. Marnie, I'm so sorry. It just happened. Oh, it just happened, I mimicked, my voice dripping with exaggerated empathy. That's the classic, isn't it? Like a spontaneous combustion of infidelity. No planning, no malicious intent, just a sudden, uncontrollable urge to betray your friend and desecrate a 15-year marriage. Fascinating. You know, I thought "it just happened" was reserved for spilled lattes, not shattered lives. Preston, still trying to salvage some shred of dignity, cleared his throat. Marnie, this is inappropriate. You're embarrassing us. I burst out laughing, a genuine, albeit slightly unhinged laugh. Embarrassing you? Oh, honey, you two took care of that all on your own. I'm just here to make sure everyone else gets to enjoy the spectacle. Think of me as the live commentator for your personal train wreck. And trust me, the ratings are going to be through the roof. I took a bite of the breadstick, crunching loudly. So, what's for dinner? Because I'm starving. All this drama really works up an appetite. The tension in the air was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. Preston and Echo sat frozen, their faces a mask of horror and disbelief. They thought they had me cornered, that I'd be the one to flee in tears. But they forgot one crucial detail. I'm a Peterson, and Peterson women don't run. We stand our ground, and we make sure everyone knows exactly who they messed with. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a declaration of war, delivered with a side of scathing wit. And the best part? They had no idea what was coming next. The silence that followed my last remark was deafening, punctuated only by the clinking of ice in someone's drink across the room. Preston and Echo were still statues, their eyes darting between me and the increasingly curious diners. It was a beautiful tableau of guilt and public humiliation, and I was soaking it all in. This wasn't just about catching them. It was about making them truly feel the weight of their choices. So, I continued, breaking the silence with a theatrical sigh, are we going to order? Or are we just going to sit here and admire the exquisite craftsmanship of your betrayal? Because frankly, I'm getting hungry, and this breadstick isn't cutting it. I hear the scallops here are divine, Preston. Or perhaps you'd prefer the lamb. Something to celebrate, perhaps? A new chapter in your business partnership? Preston finally managed to unfreeze, his eyes narrowed. Marnie, this is childish. We need to talk, privately. Privately? I scoffed, leaning back in my chair with an air of casual disdain. Oh, darling, privacy went out the window the moment you decided to treat our marriage like a discarded takeout menu, and my best friend like the daily special. Now, if you'll excuse me, I believe I have the right to a decent meal, considering I'm still technically paying for half of everything you own. Or at least you think I am. I let that hang in the air, a tiny, almost imperceptible hook. Echo, ever the peacemaker, when it suited her, tried to interject. Marnie, please, let's just go somewhere else. We can talk. Oh, Echo, you're so sweet, I said, my voice dripping with false sincerity. Always thinking of others. But no, I think this venue is perfect. It has a certain poetic justice, wouldn't you agree? Besides, I have a few things I need to get off my chest. Things that might just change the entire dynamic of this little love triangle you two have so carefully constructed. I signaled to a passing waiter, a young man who looked like he was trying very hard to pretend he hadn't just witnessed a domestic explosion. "Excuse me, could I get a glass of your finest Sauvignon Blanc? And perhaps a menu? I'm feeling rather celebratory tonight." Preston's jaw tightened. "Celebratory? Marnie? What exactly are you celebrating?" I smiled, a slow, predatory grin. "Oh, just a few personal victories. You know, the kind you achieve when you're not busy being distracted by extracurricular activities." I paused, letting the implication sink in. "Actually, Preston, since you asked, I have a little announcement. A little twist, if you will, that I thought you two might find illuminating." I pulled out my phone, not to scroll, but to casually display a notification. "You know that little app I've been working on? Insight Flow? The one you always called my cute little hobby project, Preston? The one you said would never make any real money?" My eyes locked onto his, watching the subtle shift from annoyance to a flicker of genuine curiosity. "Yes, Marnie. What about it?" he asked, a hint of condescension still in his tone. He still thought he had the upper hand, that my hobby was just a distraction. "Well," I continued, my voice calm, almost serene, "it turns out cute little hobbies can sometimes be quite lucrative. This morning, I finalized the acquisition deal. A major tech conglomerate, the one you've always dreamed of working for, actually just bought Insight Flow for several $1,000,000. The wire transfer is pending as we speak." The effect was instantaneous and utterly glorious. Preston's eyes widened, his mouth falling open slightly. Echo, who had been nervously fiddling with her napkin, froze, her gaze snapping to Preston, then back to me, a dawning horror on her face. The air crackled with their shock. It was better than any reality TV show. "Millions?" Preston choked out, his voice barely a whisper. "Marnie, you sold Insight Flow? Why didn't you tell me?" I laughed, a genuine, triumphant laugh this time. "Oh, Preston, darling, you were so busy with your client dinners and your sensitive data. I didn't want to bother you with my insignificant little achievements. Besides, you always dismissed it, remember? Said it was a waste of my time. Turns out it was a rather profitable waste of time, wouldn't you say?" Echo, bless her heart, looked utterly bewildered. "Marnie, I had no idea. You never said anything." "That's because, Echo," I explained, my tone sweet as poison, "some secrets are meant to be kept, especially from those who might try to undermine you. Or, steal your husband." The last part was delivered with a pointed glare that made her visibly flinch. Preston, however, was already doing mental calculations. His eyes darted around, a new kind of greed replacing his earlier shame. "Marnie, that's incredible. We should celebrate. This changes everything. Our future, our plans." I held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "Oh, Preston, you're absolutely right. It changes everything, especially your future, and your plans. Because you see, that's not the only little surprise I have for you tonight." I took a sip of the Sauvignon Blanc the waiter had just placed in front of me, savoring the crisp, cool taste. It was almost as satisfying as the look on Preston's face. "Remember our beautiful house in Alpharetta?" I continued, my voice calm, almost conversational. "The one in the gated community? The one you always called our investment?" Preston nodded, a confused frown on his face. "Yes, of course. What about it?" He was clearly trying to figure out how my millions would now benefit him. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. "Well, darling," I said, leaning forward conspiratorially, "it turns out that house was actually bought entirely with my grandmother's inheritance. And the deed, Preston, has always been solely in my name. A little detail you might have overlooked during our whirlwind romance and subsequent 15 years of marriage." I watched as the color drained from his face again, a fresh wave of shock washing over him. Echo gasped, a small choked sound. She finally seemed to grasp the full extent of what was happening. "And here's the kicker," I added, my voice dropping to a low, impactful tone. "While you two were busy planning your romantic rendezvous, I was busy planning my exit strategy. I listed the house for sale last week. Discreetly, of course. And guess what? An offer was accepted. The The paperwork is already in motion. We close in 30 days. The impact was like a physical blow. Preston literally recoiled, his chair scraping against the floor. You sold the house? Our house? Without telling me? His voice was a mixture of disbelief and genuine terror. My house, Preston, I corrected gently. And yes, without telling you. You were, as I recall, rather preoccupied. Besides, why would I bother you with the details of my property? You always said I was so bad with finances, remember? So I handled it. All by myself. Isn't that just a hoot? Echo looked like she was about to faint. Her face was ashen, her eyes wide with a mixture of pity for Preston and dawning realization of her own precarious position. The business opportunity was looking less and less appealing by the second. So, to recap, I said, taking another leisurely sip of wine, you're sitting here with my now ex-best friend, discussing your future, while I've just sold my multi-million-dollar app, and, oh, by the way, I've also sold the house you currently live in, which was never actually yours to begin with. You're about to be single, potentially homeless, and significantly poorer than you thought. And all because you couldn't keep it in your pants, or your texts. Karma Darling is a real estate agent with a killer closing rate. Preston's face was a mask of utter devastation. He looked like a man who'd just been hit by a truck, then run over by a steamroller, and then had a flock of pigeons relieve themselves on his face. It was magnificent. The waiter, bless his heart, quickly scurried away, probably to tell the entire kitchen staff about the drama unfolding. This wasn't just a twist, it was a complete rewriting of their entire narrative. They thought they were the main characters, embarking on a scandalous new romance, but I was the author, and I had just introduced a plot twist that would send their little story spiraling into oblivion. And the best part? The revenge hadn't even truly begun. This was just the appetizer. The main course was about to be served, and it was going to be delicious. Preston sat there, mouth agape, looking like a fish that had just been filleted and was still trying to swim. Echo, beside him, had gone from pale to a sickly shade of green. The elegant ambiance of the oaken vine was now completely shattered, replaced by the palpable tension of a public execution, with me as the smiling, wine-sipping executioner. "Marnie, this is insane!" Preston finally sputtered, his voice rising in volume, attracting even more attention. "You can't just sell our house. We've been married for 15 years. That's community property." I raised an eyebrow, a picture of calm sophistication. "Oh, Preston, darling, you really should have paid more attention during the brief moments when you weren't glued to ESPN or your phone. Community property laws in Georgia are quite specific, and when a property is acquired solely through one spouse's inheritance and the deed is exclusively in their name, it tends to remain, well, theirs. And guess whose name is on that deed, clear as day? Hint, it starts with an M and ends with a Peterson." I took another sip of wine, savoring his agony. It's a common misconception, I know, but ignorance of the law, much like ignorance of your wife's ambition, is no excuse. Echo, who had been silent, finally spoke up, her voice trembling. "Marnie, you're being cruel. This is too much." "Cruel?" I scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. "Cruel was you two whispering sweet nothings behind my back, planning your little love nest while I was busy building a future you both thought I was incapable of. Cruel was Preston dismissing my dreams while secretly pursuing his own sordid fantasies with my best friend. This echo is called consequences. It's a fundamental principle of the universe, much like gravity, or the fact that you shouldn't sleep with your best friend's husband." Preston, ever the narcissist, still couldn't grasp the full scope of his predicament. But what about me? Where am I supposed to go? What about my things? My golf clubs? My vintage comic book collection? He sounded like a child whose favorite toy had just been confiscated. "Oh, don't you worry your pretty little head about your golf clubs, Preston," I said, my voice dripping with mock concern. "I'm sure Echo will have plenty of room for them in her tiny yoga studio apartment. Or perhaps you can store them in her Prius. I believe it has a surprisingly spacious trunk. And as for your comic books, I'm sure eBay will be thrilled to have them. Think of it as an early retirement fund." The color drained from Echo's face once more. She lived in a modest two-bedroom apartment, a stark contrast to our sprawling suburban home. The implication was clear. Preston, with his expensive tastes and even more expensive ego, would be a very unwelcome addition to her already cramped life. Her fantasy of a glamorous new life with Preston was rapidly dissolving into the grim reality of shared utility bills and a lack of closet space. "Marnie, you can't be serious," Preston pleaded, his voice now tinged with desperation. 15 years. We built a life together. We built my life, Preston. I corrected him, my voice firm. You just enjoyed the amenities, and for 15 years I tolerated your condescension, your dismissiveness, and your utter inability to see me as anything more than a supporting character in your own self-important drama. But now, the show's over, and you've been cut from the cast. I pulled out a small, elegantly folded document from my bag. And speaking of cuts, I also took the liberty of having my attorney draft these divorce papers. Clean, simple, and thanks to my recent multi-million-dollar acquisition, entirely in my favor. You'll find the terms quite generous, considering your recent indiscretions. A modest settlement, enough to get you started, perhaps a down payment on a really nice cardboard box. But no alimony, no shared assets, and certainly no claim to my new fortune. Consider it a parting gift. Or perhaps a severance package for services rendered, however poorly. I slid the papers across the table. They landed with a soft thud, a sound that echoed like a death knell in the suddenly silent restaurant. Preston stared at them, then at me, then at Echo, his eyes wide with a dawning, terrifying realization of the sheer, unadulterated mess he had made. Echo, meanwhile, looked utterly horrified. Her dream of snagging a wealthy, successful husband was evaporating before her eyes. Preston wasn't just losing his wife. He was losing his entire financial safety net, his home, and his carefully cultivated image. He was a train wreck, and she was about to be collateral damage. "Marnie, please," Echo whimpered, her voice barely audible. "Don't do this. Think about what people will say." I laughed, a genuine, mirthful sound. "Oh, Echo, honey, I'm way past caring what people will say. In fact, I'm rather looking forward to it. I'm sure the neighborhood gossip mill in Alpharetta will be working overtime. And you know what? Let them. Because while they're gossiping, I'll be living my best life, free from two toxic individuals who thought they could play me for a fool." I stood up, adjusting my dress, feeling a surge of power and liberation. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a new life to start, and a very expensive bottle of wine to finish. You two have fun with your business opportunity. I'm sure it'll be memorable." As I turned to leave, Preston lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "Marnie, wait! We can fix this. Please don't do this to me." I looked down at his hand, then back up at his desperate, pathetic face. "You know, Preston, for 15 years, I waited for you to see me, to appreciate me, to treat me with respect. And for 15 years you failed. So no, we can't fix this. Because some things, once broken, are better off left shattered. And now, if you'll kindly remove your hand, I have a future to embrace. And you, my dear, have a very uncomfortable conversation to finish with Echo." I pulled my arm free, the look in my eyes leaving no doubt that I was done. Done with him, done with her, done with the entire charade. I walked out of the oaken vine, not looking back, leaving behind two utterly devastated individuals and a restaurant full of stunned onlookers. The cool night air of Alpharetta felt like a cleansing balm. I had delivered my performance, and the reviews, from my perspective, were 5 stars. The revenge wasn't just epic, it was surgical. It hit Preston where it hurt the most: his ego, his wallet, and his carefully constructed illusion of control. And Echo? She got a front-row seat to the implosion, realizing that her prize was now a financially crippled, emotionally bankrupt man. Poetic justice indeed. The new normal for them would be a stark contrast to the luxurious life they had envisioned. For me, however, the new normal was just beginning, and it looked gloriously, spectacularly free. Walking out of the oaken vine that night, I didn't feel the burning rage I'd expected. Instead, there was a profound sense of calm, a lightness I hadn't realized I'd been missing for years. It was like shedding a heavy, ill-fitting coat. The air, crisp and cool, felt like a promise of new beginnings, not an end. My SUV, usually just a means of transportation, now felt like a chariot carrying me towards a future I was finally in control of. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal paperwork, packing boxes, and the sweet, sweet taste of liberation. Preston, predictably, tried every trick in the book. He called, he texted, he even showed up at the house, looking disheveled and pleading. He tried to appeal to my sense of fairness, which was rich coming from a man who'd just been caught red-handed. Each attempt was met with a polite but firm redirection to my attorney. The legal system, in its own slow, methodical way, was proving to be a surprisingly satisfying instrument of justice. The divorce was swift, uncontested on my terms, and final within weeks. Echo, on the other hand, vanished from my life entirely. Her social media went dark. Her yoga studio's schedule suddenly had a lot of substitute instructors. I heard through the grapevine of the Alpharetta gossip network, which, let's be honest, is faster than any fiber optic cable, that Preston had indeed moved into Echo's small apartment. The reality of their love nest was far less glamorous than their illicit dinners. Reports trickled back of arguments over space, money, and Preston's incessant complaining about the lack of a proper home gym. It seemed their passionate affair quickly devolved into a domestic squabble over who left the toilet seat up. Some love story, right? More like a cautionary tale. As for me, the sale of Insight Flow closed without a hitch, the millions landing in my account like a gentle rain of financial freedom. The house sale also went through smoothly. I chose not to buy another sprawling suburban mansion right away. Instead, I rented a chic, minimalist condo downtown, a place with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. It was a complete departure from the cookie-cutter perfection of our gated community, and it felt like a breath of fresh air. No HOA rules, no nosy neighbors, just me and my newfound independence. The philosophical takeaway from all this? Life has a funny way of pushing you towards your true potential when you least expect it. For years, I had allowed myself to be defined by my marriage, by Preston's subtle put-downs, and by the comfortable but ultimately stifling routine of suburban life. I thought I was happy, but in reality, I was just complacent. His betrayal, as devastating as it felt at the moment, was actually the catalyst I needed. It forced me to look inwards, to remember the ambitious, intelligent woman I was before I became Preston's wife. I learned that true strength isn't about avoiding pain. It's about transforming it. It's about taking the lemons life throws at you and not just making lemonade, but building a multi-million-dollar lemonade stand and selling it for a profit. I also learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead. It's about building a life so spectacularly good that the people who tried to tear you down become nothing more than a distant, pathetic footnote in your triumphant autobiography. My relationships changed, too. The friends who truly cared rallied around me, offering support and a healthy dose of "I told you so" about Preston and Echo's questionable character. I even started dating again, cautiously at first, but with a renewed sense of self-worth. I realized I wasn't looking for someone to complete me, but someone to complement the already awesome person I had become. Preston and Echo? They faded into the background, becoming cautionary tales whispered over brunch. Their love story was short-lived, fueled by illicit excitement, and quickly extinguished by the mundane realities of life without my financial cushion. He lost his home, his comfortable life, and his reputation. She gained a financially dependent, perpetually grumpy man who blamed her for everything. It was a match made in, well, certainly not heaven, more like a particularly uncomfortable corner of purgatory. As for me, Marnie Peterson, I'm doing just fine. More than fine, actually. I'm thriving. I'm exploring new passions, traveling, and investing in my own future. My life is a testament to the fact that sometimes the biggest betrayals lead to the greatest triumphs. And the best part? I did it all with a smile, a sharp wit, and a secret that truly changed everything. Because sometimes when life hands you a betrayal, you don't just get mad. You get rich, you get free, and you get the last laugh. And trust me, that laugh echoes far longer than any whispered apologies.